We take for granted how some games are made these days. Easing the player and keeping the experience balanced seems a given, but some games subvert this rule. They're fairly difficult to play from the outset due to their gameplay, but also because of one's lack of knowledge on how to make them easy. These are the games that you kind of wish had an easy mode when they first released, rather than making you scratch and claw to make them easy. Not that they'll ever get optional easy modes, but it's interesting to look back and examine why they were so difficult. So without further ado, let's take a look. Dark Souls Remastered. Combat in From Software games always has a straightforward explanation. Hit this button to attack, this button to dodge, etc. However, the greater nuances like stamina management, invincibility frames while rolling, the significance of certain stats, and what to build towards takes more time to understand. That's not even considering the design of bosses in games like Dark Souls Remastered, or the order to go to certain areas given the game's world design. Suffice it to say, but if this or the original was your first Dark Souls, it was a struggle. Bloodborne. The struggle in Bloodborne is an altogether different one. Along with all of the tenets defining success in Dark Souls, you also don't have a shield. The game's visceral attacks and health recovery on attacking further incentivize aggression, but it also has to be measured and done at the right time. Everything is faster, including you, and you won't even know about the killing potential of some enemies like Winter Lanterns until it's too late. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is like a rhythm game. No, maybe actually like a puzzle game. Maybe a stealth action game. There are right ways to play Sekiro for sure, but it's not for everyone, even if you grew comfortable with the Soulsborne series. Learning to deflect is a task in itself, but learning to read enemies, knowing when they'll perform sweeping attacks, lunges, or grabs, is something that only cold hard practice will provide. If this is your first From Software title, then your mileage may vary when getting into it. KENSHI. You are no one, and the world of KENSHI cares nothing for you. The odd times it does is to beat the ever-loving tar out of you. KENSHI is remorseless, but it also offers an incredible degree of freedom, letting you join roving post-apocalyptic ninja clans, establish a base, become a mercenary, or straight up explore the world. The right way to play is by making tons of mistakes, and each of those could be your last. Outward. Outward takes a number of beats from KENSHI, providing an extensive degree of freedom while making seemingly ordinary actions have greater weight. Survival isn't just about camping and not being killed while asleep. It's also about removing your backpack while fighting, knowing the process for preparing spells and traversing long distances without getting knocked out. And once again, you'll only know if you're doing well when nothing truly bad is happening. Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. Call it how the games were originally designed, or the result of the remake process, but Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy is tough. This could be down to the levels, especially places like Road to Nowhere, or just the one-hit kill mechanic that embodies the gameplay. Regardless of how hard it really is, Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy definitely made waves for being tougher than what today's players are used to. Super Metroid. In many modern-day Metroidvania games, backtracking and not always having the right tools is expected. But back in the day, Super Metroid was one of the first games to introduce the concept with its imposing world, various threats, and numerous secrets. Imagine trying to prepare for Super Metroid when it was completely unlike anything at the time, much less its predecessors. Of course, even today, it's still one of the tougher games depending on one's playstyle. Super Mario Sunshine. For those complaining that Super Mario Odyssey didn't provide enough challenge, try revisiting Super Mario Sunshine. Manipulating FLUDD as you hover around and precisely land on platforms can test your patience. Heck, playing the challenge levels where FLUDD is taken away entirely will test your platforming prowess all the more. It's almost like Super Mario Galaxy, released after Sunshine for the Wii, was the easy mode in comparison. Banjo-tooie. If you thought the first game was a collectathon with cryptic secrets, then Banjo-tooie takes this much further. The sheer number of abilities and circumstances to use them isn't bad per se, but if you didn't play the first game, it can be a struggle working them all out. And Gruntilda is somehow even a more bollocks final boss than the first game. Hotline Miami 2. One shot will kill you. That's pretty much the only lesson that Hotline Miami will teach you from the outset. When you know the enemy locations and spawns, what to do perfectly to take down a room of enemies, which enemy has to be beaten down first, and so on, the game is an exhilarating rush. Without that knowledge, it's more trial, error, and frustration. Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight is one of the best Metroidvania games currently available, but it sure does make you struggle. From the map and exploration to the general number of platforming hazards and some freakishly tough bosses later, Hollow Knight has no qualms about testing you. Sure, you can trivialize certain engagements with the right charms and techniques, but it's tough from the outset. Mega Man X6. Mega Man X has always been fairly balanced with regards to difficulty. Mega Man X3's awful boss AI was a standout, but the series has never really felt unbalanced against the player. That is, until Mega Man X6, which has such stages as Blaze Phoenix's Magma area. Many of the bosses weren't even tough, but their stages were torturous to get through. Neo. The first two real bosses in Neo are some brutal difficulty checks. Fighting on Ryoki without the ability to trigger key pulse on dodging and generally avoiding one-hit deaths is a task. And just when you've got that figured out, it's Hino Inma to test your patience and dodge timing next. Neo isn't easier later on either, as you try to figure out what its various stats mean, which weapons and its abilities best work and whatnot. On the upside, the broken builds are absurdly broken and feel great to use. Final Fantasy Tactics. On the one hand, the story and combat of Final Fantasy Tactics makes it worth experiencing. The difficulty feels fine in the early going, especially if you're new to this type of RPG. On the other hand, it also throws bosses like Ygraf and Velius at you without warning. The former especially so if your last save file is right before that. There's no way to really back out and level up. Contra, 1987. How hard was the original Contra? Well, hard enough to coin the term Nintendo Hard. It was one of those games that inspired the arcade craze of doling out coins just to keep playing. One-hit kills were common, extra lives were needed to just keep playing, and some bosses showed no remorse. So before someone tells you that Cuphead is too tough, point them towards Contra and don't tell them how to get more lives. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.